What is compassion fatigue and how does it affect coaches?
That's interesting. Um, yeah, I don't know if I've ever heard the term compassion fatigue as something that's, um, I don't know, diagnosable or, but I could see it. I could see it be something. There was an exercise that I did when I was in coach training where the trainers asked people to step into compassion and see what that feels like. Because I mean, the definition of compassion is you're feeling the same feelings that the other person is feeling, and that's a powerful place to be. And then the coach trainer asked us to step into a place of empathy, and the idea of empathy is that you are identifying accurately what the other person is feeling, but you're not necessarily feeling the same feelings they're feeling. And the point of their making this distinction is that empathy is to be, empathy is to be embraced as a coach. Whereas compassion, yeah, it's fun. It's not the best spot to be in because it limits your role as a coach as well. You're not as nimble. It tends to shut down curiosity, and it's not really your job. That's not what a coach is there for. Friend, sure. Family member, fine. But coach, not so much. It's There's something about acknowledging someone's feelings and approaching them from an empathetic standpoint. So I think the first thing is if you are a coach and you're experiencing compassion fatigue, then you you have an opportunity for growth to lean more into empathy and and to trust that your client is naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. That your client has everything that they need in order to, meet this challenge, learn from this challenge. Yes, there are still structural and societal forces at play that affect some people more than others, and it's not fair. That accepted, there's still an empowering perspective that you can take that your client is brilliant, has answers, and you can lean into that brilliance and go from an empowerment standpoint. That would be the opportunity for growth if you're feeling compassion fatigue.
And it reminds me of some of the things I learned with you in the 2.0. If you're experiencing that one, you're probably working harder than you need to yourself in a
Mm-hmm.
coaching session. Maybe you're too attached to an outcome or there's certain pressures that you're putting on yourself. I mean, I worked in healthcare, in leadership in healthcare, but it reminds me of healthcare where they talk about compassion fatigue and maybe, doctors and nurses becoming a little bit complacent. Oh, it's just another person that's come in with a heart condition or, whatever that field or a niche is. Yeah, if I think about, coaches and where that could be a trigger for them, it's to think about your own compassion with self. Are you burnt out? Are you taking care of yourself? What other pressures and expectations do you put on yourself to fix it for someone? Because that's not our role, is it? And it's not our role to want success for somebody more than they want it for themselves. And I hear that from coaches sometimes as well. What do you think about that, John?
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of some of the work that I've done uh, with students, and some students whose circumstances are so challenging that it's a miracle that they even get to school, let alone stay awake and do anything. And usually there's a crust, where they're asking, "Can I trust you? Are you going to judge me like everyone else? Are you just going to tell me like the usual adult things, like do your homework, get it together, you got this," those kind of things. But when they realize, no, you're just going to listen, you're going to be a place where I could say what I need to say without you reacting or overreacting, but really just being in the space with me, then it feels like the floodgates open and they just gosh. And it can be one heavy thing after the next. And as coaches, I think my pre-trained self would have looked at that and wanted to try to fix it immediately. Like, what can you do to fix or do different or this or that and solve it? But all that really does, and there are some circumstances where it's like, yes, this does need to be solved. Like, we need to get other resources in here and take significant action steps. And there's also parallel to that, an empowering stance where you can assume that, like, this person, when they're processing this, they're getting value. There's going to be insights. There's so much value in just sharing where you're at. And coming, as a coach, coming back the next week, like being there again for that person, to listen again, and just showing up and being and listening provides so much value. You can trust that value. You can trust that process. And there were times when I felt like, after just heartbroken, like that this exists in the world. And that to me is also the beautiful thing about coaching, is that you get to be a human too. You get to feel all those feels. You get to be in there with them. And yet your most powerful coaching self is not necessarily compassionate, but empathetic. And that's your job. Your job is to stay curious and to replace the judgment with curiosity. It's courageous. It's courageous work. I really view it as sacred work. It's healing work. It's empowering work. And I think if enough people get trained and enough people lean into this kind of being, and it's already happening. I mean, the world is changing. And empowerment becomes the limited resource. That's the resource that you can't get from a Google search. I mean, knowledge can lead to empowerment, but these students, they are, like, some of the challenges they're facing, just having someone to listen to and become curious about certain aspects of self. I mean, these students, the resilience and inner strength they're building is tremendous. Yeah, I forgot the original question, Raj, but
I know we're on time, so maybe we can continue to pick up about compassion fatigue, and I think I just want to end on letting everyone know that compassion also starts with self, doesn't it? So how can you take care of yourself? You got to put your own oxygen mask on first before you can show up for others. And John, enjoyed the celebrations.
Thank you. It's a glorious sunny day here. I'm super thankful, and thankful for this community and being in this space. And I mean, I feel like if you are building your coaching practice, I would encourage you to take the perspective of reaching as many people as you can with coaching, for the sake of making the world a kinder, generous, more empathetic place. It's amazing when you start to step in building your career on purpose for a cause. Magic doors open. It's like, you have the opportunities to really change someone's life. You got to do it.